Seize the Hotel's activists stage protests as leaders refuse to shelter unhoused people at zero cost. I'm Yoonj Kim, and this is MTV News Need to Know. As an average of 5 unhoused people die each day in Los Angeles, citizens staged a protest outside City Council President Nury Martinez's house to demand the use of federal funds to house the over 40,000 Angelenos experiencing homelessness. She and Mayor Garcetti are under fire to expand LA's Project Room Key, which would shelter them in 15,000 vacant hotel rooms. Their demands follow President Biden's January executive order saying FEMA would cover 100% of the cost to shelter people in vacant hotels across the country. But many cities like LA have not taken advantage of this offer. Some counties in Texas scrambled to provide housing during last week's storm after not signing up for FEMA money. And in Philadelphia, city officials say that they do not plan to seek these free funds, despite the fact that 5,700 people experience homelessness there. In LA, the coroner's office says deaths related to homelessness increased 74% from this time last year, and meanwhile, half of the city's hotel rooms remain empty. Mayor Garcetti, who lit up City Hall to celebrate a rover landing, is getting flack for literally spotlighting Mars while people in his city on Earth are suffering. Nobody cares about this. Help our homeless neighbors. The fact you would tweet about something so useless when there are heaps and heaps of humans living in tents on our streets in a pandemic shows how out of touch you are. Shameful. California leaders like City Attorney Mike Feuer, Council members Mike Bonin and Nithya Raman, and the LA City Business Council support expanding Project Room Key. LA and many other cities did use hotels to house some people in 2020, which simultaneously reduced the risk of spreading COVID-19. But Eve Garrow of the SoCal ACLU chapter called LA's Project Room Key response quite inadequate just by a numbers perspective. Not only is keeping people unsheltered during a pandemic or a winter storm inhumane, but countless studies show that it's cheaper to house people experiencing homelessness than to police and hospitalize them when they live on the streets. And as Streetwatch LA points out, there's enough vacant hotel rooms for long-term solutions. At least 70,000 hotel units will stay empty for the next 5 years. Seize the hotels and convert them into permanent social housing. So, almost a year into a pandemic filled with climate crises and tons of vacant hotel rooms going to waste, why aren't leaders jumping at the opportunity to house people for free? The answer is a mix of politics and a seeming lack of will. Some leaders, including those in Philly, cite the tedious bureaucracy of dealing with FEMA, which can be slow to reimburse costs. And many hotels straight up do not want to participate for fear of tarnishing their brand. This is pretty given that in cities like LA, many hotels are built on public lands and paid for by taxpayers' money. In fact, LA has granted developers almost $800 million since 2005. Plus, many leaders in hotel chains have bowed down to nimbyism. NIMBY, which stands for Not in My Backyard, is when residents show opposition to developments in their community out of fear and often prejudice. Back in September, a NIMBY cry from New York's Upper West Side residents actually pressured the city to kick out 300 unhoused people from the neighborhood's Lucerne Hotel. Solving the homelessness crisis is possible. In Utah, Salt Lake City reduced its unhoused population by over 90% by providing permanent housing and comprehensive counseling. And this was years before the free FEMA aid that is now available, which proves that these methods work. They could be a blueprint for the entire nation. And NIMBYism is not just against the unhoused. We saw how harmful it could be with COVID testing across the country in communities that clutch their pearls at the idea of a public health service in their neighborhoods. This fearful short-sightedness gets in the way of humane solutions. And if there's anything we learned from the pandemic, it's that none of us can move forward when parts of our society are still sick and suffering. And shelter is a basic human right. We have public lands and buildings funded by our tax dollars, yet people still die from not having a roof over their heads, while free rooms remain empty. This is inexcusable. I'm Yoonj Kim, and that's what you need to know.